All right, good morning, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. In this video, we are going to be talking about how it is that it's going to be very easy to control the economy, especially when you have fear tactics at play. Now, I left a link down in the description to a video that I came across this morning, and to be very frank with you, I had no idea how bad it was really taking place out there. Like when it came to the issues that are taking place in Portland, I had no idea how bad it was really taking place until I watched this video. So I'm going to play it here for you in just a second. I'm going to let a few more people get into this live stream before I play this video, but this is like alarming, like so alarming. I cannot believe how bad it's really gotten inside of Portland, inside of the anarchy that is now taking place there, and the overwhelming need for government intervention to now take place to stop the chaos from spreading any further is now being discussed here at the White House. So I'm going to play it for you guys. Here we go. All right.
So I believe it was in Oregon where you had a federal building where there were men in black ski masks who were committing acts of violence, who were shutting down a government building. To the president's point, they don't come from nowhere. These are paid people. This is organized. They're committing acts of political terrorism on American soil. And it's time we had a government that looked out for the American people rather than the people who are committing violence against the American people.
When you go out to Portland and you see what's happening in Portland, this is like nobody's ever seen anything like it every night. And this is going to
Nobody has ever seen anything like it. It's every night. Here, listen to what the president has to say.
Who are committing acts of violence, who are shutting down a government building. To the president's point, they don't come from nowhere. These are paid people. This is organized. They're committing acts of political terrorism on American soil. And it's time we had a government that looked out for the American people rather than the people who are committing violence against the American people.
when you go out to Portland and you see what's happening in Portland, this is like nobody's ever seen anything like it every night. And this has gone on for years. They just burned the place down. And you know, the shop owners, most of them have left, but the few shops that are open, they just use plywood and just like 3/4-inch plywood. They don't put storefronts because they know it's going to be burned down. These are professional agitators.
That's right.
These are bad people.
You know, you hear that? I mean, most of them left. The rest of them use 3/4-inch plywood. They know that the 3/4-inch plywood, it's all going to get burned down, and it's all this paid provocateur or whatever. To be honest with you guys, I hadn't heard anything about this. I live an hour from Portland, and nobody is talking about this except the mainstream media propagating this information out there for everybody to hear. Like, I don't watch the news. I literally do not watch the news. And when I came across this, I'm like, how many other people know about this? Like, here I am just literally an hour away from Portland, and I had no idea how bad it is until I heard the president go ahead and spread that information for everybody to hear. Now, I've gone to Portland and I've seen where the riots have taken place, and I see how bad it is. And when I went and watched the videos in which they're talking about, I do believe that there is paid provocateurism going on there, however you want to say it, where people are paid to riot and throw bottles and bombs and everything else and graffiti and destroy. And I do believe that stuff is taking place, and I believe it is all for show. Like, who else is spreading this information better than the president himself? Like, here we are. I'm an Oregonian. I lived in Oregon most of my life. I talk to people every single day, and this is not part of our discussion. Not a single time. Not anybody anywhere did I talk to anybody talking about how bad the rioting is taking place. Do we hear about it? Yeah, on the news, like everybody else. See, this isn't as bad as people want to make it out to be. This is pushed out there so that it can scare people. It's a fear tactic. You know, those videos that you see on TV talking about how the whole place is on fire and hell and everything else, I believe that the videos that you did see did take place. And I have seen where issues up in Portland have gotten quite extreme, and I've seen personal videos of violence that were far worse than anything that I could have ever imagined. But when I see videos like this where the president is talking about it being anarchy, I don't think so. See, real anarchy looks very different from what they are showing here. This isn't anarchy. See, anarchy is when you go ahead and just make government irrelevant. This is making government more relevant. This is the opposite of anarchy. All right? The more that these paid provocateurs get in there and they disrupt the government, and they disrupt the government buildings, and they disrupt the government systems, more government intervention and protection comes to protect that system. See, this is what I find is so interesting when I look at videos like this, when I see this and I think to myself, man, this is the exact propagandized information that they want to spread in order to create the problem reaction solution, in order to have that dominating, overwhelming, controlling in the name of protection. So this is how you do it. This is real anarchy, and what anarchy really looks like is how you make the government irrelevant in your life. See, people say, how is it that we fix the system? We fix the system by literally getting them out of your life. Every single day, all of us go and we work and we earn dollars and we pay taxes in dollars. We have them completely in our life. The moment that we step away from that, the moment we relinquish them of their power over us. But nobody, literally nobody in the world is going to do it. See, real anarchy comes from the abandonment of the dollar completely. Not this, oh, we're going to be upset with the dollar and pretend like we don't like the dollar and then continue to write ever increasing amounts of debts in dollars, take out debts in dollars, get promises to get paid in dollars, count everything that we own in dollars. So long as that continues to happen, we will never have real anarchy. See, every time we say, how many dollars is that worth? How many dollars are you going to give me? What we are doing is literally giving the government the power over us. See, anarchy isn't a bunch of people rioting in the streets. That isn't anarchy. That's frustration. That's being mad. That's being in a position in which that having no idea on what it is that you're going to do. Right? And being guided into that. When you go out there and you decide for yourself that you are no longer going to participate in this system, then you're stepping into real anarchy. When you say, nah, I'm not going to involve them in any way, shape, or form. How do you do that? You can't. There will never be anarchy. Because every single day you're going to accept the dollars. And you're going to pay in dollars. You know? I find this so, I find videos like this to be so, like, purposefully done in order to create a narrative that they can then control over. This is the problem reaction solution in play. I mean, think about it. I live here very close to Portland, and I had no idea how bad it was. I heard about it on the news just like everybody else. Nobody is having a conversation about it. Nobody is worried about the riots getting in, near our neighborhoods or anything else like that. Nobody is talking about it. The only people who are talking about it is the White House to everybody out there in America and putting that in their ear. Look how bad it is. Look at what's going on here. We need to intervene. We need government intervention.
And they're paid a lot of money by rich people, some of whom we know. I'm sure I know some. If I knew, I wouldn't associate, because I'll be in trouble, because Pam will say, why are you associating with this person? I will tell you that these are bad, bad people, and they're paying a lot of money, millions of dollars. But take a look at Portland sometime.
They're paid millions of dollars, and you're advertising for them. Where else would people hear about it? I mean, if he wasn't out here talking about it, how else would people hear about it? They wouldn't. Like, I'm right here. I'm not hearing about it, not from the conversations I'm having, right? So if I'm living within an hour of it and nobody around me is having a conversation about it, how is it the information's going to get out there unless he tells you? Right? And I'm sure he's getting paid to do it, just like all the rest of the rich people, because they're all in the game together.
These are crazy people, and they're trying to burn down buildings, including federal buildings. And on my list of things that I want to do before we finish up with the cities, because I think we're going to whip the cities back into shape, but we have to. We cannot let our cities, and that's a small example, but it's the most violent.
So I love it. What I love best about this is that he goes ahead and names out the real source of the problem. It's rich people doing this. And then literally names them. George Soros, and I forget who else. He named somebody else there. It's not important, really. All right? Because they're not going to go after those people. Instead, what they are going to do is create an army against the idea of what it is that they are doing. So they're going to spend all this money to create all these ideas of people rioting, and then these people are going to spend a bunch more money to create an army of people to fight those people. So this money gets spent on the fight, create this and these and all these pawns, and now they're fighting. You see this? Like, I laugh at it, and this is like the preview, right? This is like, hey, look at this. Look at the commercial that we are now making for this event.
Example. It's every night, and they've done it for years. You'd think maybe at some point they made their point, and what are they doing? But we're going to get out there, and we're going to do a pretty big number of those people in Portland that are doing that. They're professional agitators.
We're going to do a pretty good number to those people. Going to go get those professional agitators out there. Not the money guy, right? That we know. I mean, he straight up names them. No, got to play this war game, all right? Got to keep the people active, got to keep them frustrated, got to keep them fighting each other, got to create this whole narrative and political game about it. Can't just go after the money. Yep, hold on.
List of things that I want to do before we finish up with the cities, because I think we're going to whip the cities back into shape, but we have to. We cannot let cities, and that's a small example, but it's the most violent example. It's every night.
Small example. He even admits it, right? He even admits it right there. A small example, and he backed up, but a violent one, a very, and I was like, no, a small example, right? Got to show the example. Let's create a small example and overwhelmingly spread that across the nation so that everybody can know that we're going to fight this thing, right? And not go after the money, go after the people. Right? All these people who are misguided, misinformed, brainwashed into believing that they are fighting a good cause, right? Literally being pawned out there by the money men so that they can create this situation to go and fight. Problem, reaction, solution. I mean, he's like literally describing it here for us.
Maybe at some point they made their point, and what are they doing? But we're going to get out there, and we're going to do a pretty big number of those people in Portland that are doing that. They're professional agitators and anarchists. They're actually anarchists. Yeah.
No, they're not. No. See, no, they're not. Anarchists literally get government out of their lives. They literally conduct themselves in a way that says government is not involved. That's the difference, right? This what they call anarchy is violent tendencies of frustration.
Defend them, Jeff.
No, I'm not defending anyone. I just want so that we can just explain this in our stories. Can you name it?
You don't explain it right, though, Jeff. Go ahead.
I love he picks on this reporter.
Another chance. Go ahead.
Antifa, Soros. What names are we talking about?
Well, Soros is a name certainly that I keep hearing. I don't know, but Soros is a name that I hear. I hear a lot of different names. I hear names of some pretty rich people that are radical left people. Maybe I hear about a guy named Reid Hoffman. Somebody's a pretty rich guy, I guess, and I hear about him. I don't know. Maybe could be him. Could be a lot of people. We hear the same names, but they're bad, and we're going to find out. And if they are funding these things, they're going to have some problems because they're agitators and they're anarchists. These are anarchists. Really bad.
You know, about this. I think about how it is that this information, this media attention, propagandized information, in order to get everybody's attention focused in on something, how are they going to use that? We are going to whip these cities. We're going to get all these agitators. We know it's money men that are doing it. Right? Think about it. Like, they're setting it up. They're getting the people ready. It's so funny to see it. It's like, here's what's interesting. It wasn't but a few years ago that a bunch of people were breaking into federal buildings and state government buildings and stuff like that in honor of this guy, right? In honor of this dude inside of Trump, right? Like, I know some personally. And so now here it is. It's the opposite. Those guys weren't anarchists breaking into those government buildings. It's right. What's pretty interesting is that whole thing fizzled out. What happened? Was there money men involved back then? Rallying the troops? Where did all those groups go? All of a sudden, his guy's in office and they just fizzle out. They're just gone. They're no longer groups anymore. Like, what were you guys doing in the first place? Did you create some sort of change to the way that government was conducted, considering Biden was shortly elected afterwards? It's so fun to watch when you look at it from a distance and you have no political affiliation with either one of these things. When you look at it as an independent, freedom-loving, libertarian-minded individual who says government is not involved in my life to begin with, the only way that they're involved is when I allow it to happen. And then you look at things like this taking place, and I'm thinking, man, you here, Mr. President, are creating a situation in which that you are forcing the government to be more involved with the people's lives instead of getting yourself out. We are going to whip these cities into it. We are going to have federal agents out there, federal intervention, federal people. And I think, is this a direction? I think to myself, is this a direction in which that people really truly want to go? Is this a direction in which that people feel confident in? Because really, when you think about how it is that confidence erodes everything in your life if you don't have it. If you don't have confidence in the decisions that you are making within the economy, if you do not have confidence in the decisions in which that you believe that the government is making that involve your life, if you don't have confidence in your job, if you don't have confidence in your family, if you don't have confidence in everything that it is that you are doing, it will erode everything within your life. Every single step that you make should be one with confidence or the belief that you are going to learn something from your steps that you are making. You're doing it with confidence because you know the direction in which that you are headed. But the moment that you put out there any kind of issue in which that no feeling of belief that you are going to be safe or secure or have any kind of feeling of like that security and safety, I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. You will believe that the confidence that you have within everything is gone. Right? You won't know if you're making the right steps. And this is really where it comes down to when I see this information out there. I think to myself, why are they putting this out there? Why are they spreading it so vastly for everybody to see and hear and believe and think and internalize? And I think, what is it that they're going to gain from all this? And then I realize again, 80% of the people aren't going to make it anyway. And so if you have to have a situation in which that protection of the cities or the power elitist or the system, I don't know how else you're going to describe it, but if you're going to have some sort of protection over that, you better have some preliminary effort taking place. You got to have reason for it. And no better reason for it than the phantom anarchist. That American who no longer believes in the system and wants to blow everything up. No, that's not the person they're scared of. They want that person. Like the government wants that dude. They want you out there blowing stuff up and breaking things. They want you to do that. They want you to go out there and create that sort of environment so that they can then create the dominating forces to compensate for that. They want you out there doing it. But what they can't stop you from doing is making a decision that makes them irrelevant. You start making them irrelevant in your life, and you will really scare them. You will scare the rich, power elitists. You will scare the governments. You will scare the system. Understanding how it is that you can get yourself out of it is the hardest thing in the world, because most people just don't have the confidence to do it. They don't understand it. They don't know it. They don't believe it. And without that, you will forever be under their control. It's obvious, and it's being presented in real time to you. You know, I think about it every single day when I think about this channel and the underlying economic forces that I try to share with people every single day, and how it is that they can make use of this information. People push back against that, and they say all the time, I was just like, yeah, but the Trump administration is doing this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, why is that important to you? Why are you making that important instead of understanding the information so that you can be making important decisions for yourself? Because that's the important part. People say, oh no, look at this horribleness that's happening out there, and they're doing this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, yeah, and they always will. It's like living in the wild, you know, always threatened to be attacked by something out there somehow, somewhere. Knowing that you can survive all of it is the confidence that you need in order to be making the decisions for yourself, because that's how this works. If you do not have confidence in the decisions that you are making, you will not have confidence in anything that you are doing, no matter what. I mean, it's just, if it's not in the government, if it's not in the economy, it's not in anything. You have to understand it for yourself. It was just like, I understand. You have to be saying to yourself, I understand that this stuff is horrible out there, and I know what to do about that. So many people don't. They don't understand how gold and silver work. They don't understand how it is being in a position of Bitcoin. And they don't understand how to operate themselves within the system using dollars. No, at any given time, they can abandon that system as well. So you just take on the energy that it doesn't matter what it is that is existing out there, you can deal with it. And whether you see riots in the streets of Portland being propagated and pushed out there through CNN and the White House, which I just find hilarious, or if you're just trying to figure out how to make that business work, it all comes down to what it is that you're believing and seeing and thinking out there. You know, sometimes I wonder what it is that people are going to do with their lives when they internalize information like I was just showing for you guys here on this CNN broadcast through the White House, talking about the overwhelming deterioration of the Portland area, and how all the businesses have moved out and all the rest of them have three-quarter inch plywood, like the thick stuff, you know, not just half-inch plywood, three-quarter inch plywood. How is it that people are supposed to react to that information? Why do they spread it in such fashion? You know, when you look at it and you think about it and you realize that they are going to be causing some sort of problem solution to create the environment in which it is that they need, why would they need that? Why would they need this sort of protection? It's because they know there's no other way. Do they know that at some point 80% of the people are going to be spending 50% of their money on food, and then they're going to be very unhappy? Do you think that maybe they recognize this from history because it repeats itself over and over again? Like, anytime you have separation of the people through inequality of magnitudes that we are now facing and going to face going into the future, something very similar happens. The majority of the people eventually get to a point where they're spending 50% of their money on food, and then they riot. They overthrow the government. When you got 20% of the people doing 70% of the consumption, where do you think the direction is headed? How is it that you think that the people are going to react when all of a sudden they find themselves working incredibly hard and barely have enough to eat? Right? That's when confidence is really lost. And so if you think about how it is that governments need to condition themselves for this event that is going to be taking place, what would that look like? How would you be able to be willing and accepting of this situation? You know, it's not the first time they've done stuff like this. You know, what was it? Obama was saying that we need a police force in this country that is just as well armed, just as well funded, just as well trained. Why? Why in the world would you need that? Why in the world would you need to start down that path and then have it for the future? Unless you were anticipating major concerns and problems. It's sad when you see it. But it's also somewhat like relieving in a way. It's almost liberating. Because now you actually have an ability to then step away from it and say, hey, I'm not going to pick any one of these sides, and I'm going to figure out what it is that I need to do in order to conduct myself, because I can see how this is going down. You know, you can think about it in a different fashion, because here you got the admittance of one money man saying that it's another money man doing it, and what they are going to do is take a bunch of money and deploy a bunch of people to fight the money that this guy is deploying to, you know, have a bunch of people rioting. It literally, it is spoken out. Says it straight, Trump just straight up said it. That's what they are going to do. And so I think about it, it was just like, wow, an army, right? Like building it right here. Instead of going and focusing in, naming names and then just focusing directly into those people itself. No, we're going to build a whole army of people to fight against it. And so when I think about how that goes down, and I think to myself, okay, well, how is it that I'm supposed to position myself to deal with that? And I think, I've already positioned myself to deal with that. See, I'm not concerned about having to now move or change anything about the way that I am doing anything going forward, because I have already conditioned myself to be in that environment, which I think is really odd. Right? Because people say, well, this is new. And I'm thinking, well, no, it's not. It's history playing out. It's viewed differently because we got all these technology differences and reasons for the chaos. But it's really ultimately the same thing. The people are pissed against the government, the powers that be, right? One way or the other. And the more inequality you get, the more this happens, the more reasons and the more frustrations and the more violence that starts to take place because of it. And it's not hard to see it. It's not hard to see it in history, and it's not hard to say that's going to happen going into the future. And this is one of the reasons why the governments need to arm themselves, because they know what's going to happen. Now, you can blame it on money men, or you can just blame it on the fact that it happens because of the massive amounts of money that pours into a system that creates the inequality, because this is an economic force playing out. Okay. So it's easy for me to deal with it because I'm already positioned in a way that I knew this was going to happen. I didn't know it was going to look like this, but I know it's going to take place. I know it's going to get worse. I know the inequality is going to get worse. I know the intervention that the governments are going to do to try and keep the people from attempting to overthrow the government is going to get more increasingly involved in people's lives, and involved in their the way they travel, the way they buy stuff, the way they work, the way they pay taxes, the way they earn. All that's going to have ever increasing amounts of government intervention in it. And as a self-proclaimed anarchist, I would like to say that, man, the more it happens, the more I see it. The more I can, there's nothing I can do to change anything about anybody and how they're conducting themselves. There's nothing I can do about not having a driver's license and registration and insurance and everything else. There's nothing I can do about that, but I can conduct myself in a way that says at any given moment, I could relinquish them of that power. and say, hey, I don't need you anymore. I don't need any of that stuff. I don't need you involved in my life in any way, shape, or form. And if you want to go ahead and exit out of it, let's do that. Right? Most people are not prepared or willing to do something of that nature. I am at any given moment. And so as I continue to play the game and observe how it is that people interact, because they want the government to behave, and they're never going to, right? They're never going to behave correctly. They're never going to behave in a way that is appropriate for everybody. They're never going to do it. The only thing that you can do is involve yourself in a way that says, man, I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm going to do next. And that's it. I saw this thing and I guess I got a little frustrated with it just because when I saw that being pushed out there, I'm like, this is the propaganda information that they need in order to create the problem reaction solution that they need. And I mean, it's straight up. And so when I see it and I want to like describe it and talk about it, people will push back against it, and that's okay, right? Because we all have our view and we all have an opinion, and I'm just trying to share mine with you and share what it is that I'm seeing and hearing and thinking, and believing in the economic forces that I have studied and tried to share with the audience here. The more I view it, the more I talk about it, and the more I discuss it with the viewers here, the more I feel I'm narrowing it down in a way that the average working class individual person can actually do something about it with their lives instead of hoping and wishing and dreaming that government would change. Right? And that's really what I honestly feel that I am doing here is I'm trying to do that. Give the people the understanding so they would literally intuitively be making the right decisions for themselves. And when, and propagandized information like this, I just got to call it out. Thank you so much for the super chat. Let's go check that thing out. Pookie, thank you for the 10 Canadian dollars. I really appreciate it. Not even a comment or anything. Just an awesome super chat. Really appreciate you. Is government debt really something the government and the Fed are concerned about? Or are they just run that narrative to sustain inflation expectations, considering the Fed has the right to buy government debt? Is the government debt really something the government and the Fed is concerned about? Yeah, I think it is, but not in the way that I think a lot of people are viewing it. Like, I believe that the government debt is a concern in a sense that the Federal Reserve at some point in the future will need to buy so much government debt in order to provide for the liquidity needs of the world that they would then like drive the government into like an unsustainable debt path. Like, I don't know how to quite describe it, but it would just be like this insurmountable amount of debt that they would have to provide, right? And so in that sense, then it really wouldn't work, right? So they are concerned in that fashion, like they can't, like the government just simply would not be able to go into debt deep enough, fast enough in order to provide the asset for the Federal Reserve to buy, to provide the liquidity to the world. Does that kind of make sense? Like the problem is like the problem exists outside. Let's separate the United States for a second, right? Because the problem exists outside of the United States, and that there's debt that it has been written that are due in dollars that doesn't have anything to do with the United States. When that debt starts to come due, and it comes due at an extreme level, the amount of liquidity, the dollars, right, in order to pay that debt off will start to increase dramatically. That will start driving the demand for dollars much higher. That means the Federal Reserve would be in a position in which that they are trying to provide the liquidity to the world to pay off that debt, to keep the dollar from going any higher, or can keep it from going extremely high, because this in turn screws up the United States economy. So now here we are all the way back at the United States economy because the dollar is strengthening on the fact that all this debt is coming due outside of the United States. Okay, so now here the Federal Reserve, they're like, oh, they got a money printer. That's true, very true. They can print out money. We'll actually just create digital, assets on a computer, or digital reserves on a computer. However, they need to buy something. And that's something that they generally buy is U.S. Treasuries. Now, if the demand for dollars outside of the United States, creating this liquidity crisis essentially for the Federal Reserve to try and fulfill, right? They're trying to provide all this liquidity to pay off all this debt that's coming due outside of the United States. And they have to buy something and put it on their balance sheet in order to provide that liquidity. And it's usually the U.S. Treasuries. the amount of U.S. treasuries they would have to buy would literally crash the U.S. government. Okay, so they can't buy this government debt. Are they doing it now? The government is still providing it because there's still demand for the asset, the U.S. treasuries. People, believe it or not, do trust the U.S. Treasury bonds will get paid, and they pay an interest. Those interest-paying bonds get used like dollars. So people use this asset because it's the safest, most liquid, deepest, widest, easiest form of dollars in the entire world that isn't dollars. There's nothing else like it. Now, here's the problem that is truly existing out there is that the United States can't provide enough of those things for the Federal Reserve to buy to provide the liquidity to the world. If they did, the government crashes. This is the real problem. Not trying to pay it off. Like, paying it off is not happening. That's not it, right? Paying it off is not it. I don't care how many discussions or economic theories or beliefs or economists or whatever who talk about trying to, get back on a sustainable debt path or whatever. They're not trying to pay off the debt. That's not part of it, right? They're trying to figure out a way that they can provide liquidity to the world who has written debts that are due in dollars. The liquidity crisis of the Federal Reserve is a real thing. It would cause a deflationary nightmare here in the United States. The dollar was to strengthen due to the fact that dollar-denominated debt is coming due outside of the United States, and the Fed cannot print up money fast enough in order to fulfill the demand for it. Does that make sense to anybody? Anybody at all? There's a great paper, it's called Dollar Funding Stresses in China. If everything that I just said is completely new to you, like if you cannot understand anything I just said for the last 2 or 3, 4 minutes or whatever it was, and it's like complete gibberish, go and read Dollar Funding Stresses in China. It is a great document by the Federal Reserve. This is the concern that they have, and they're talking about just one country, not talking about the entire world. I mean, they do talk a little bit about the entire world, but they're ultimately talking about the demand for dollars coming out of just one nation, China, right? And how that demand for dollars can create a contagion effect across the entire globe. It's a great piece of paper, right? Given by the Federal Reserve, even though most people don't want to listen to the Federal Reserve, even though they're the ones in charge of monetary policy. If you don't want to listen to or read it yourself, you can go and become a member of the channel by being a member of the channel. It's $1 a month, and you'll have access to all the member-only live streams we've done, and that was one of them. Dollar Funding Stresses in China. It was great. You can internalize that and have it from a working class point of view. Did you mean commercial, I assume? Huh. All right. Let's see here. Oh, you guys are all talking. Let me see if I can find a question or something here. Cannabis collapses everywhere it is legalized. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I mean, it's just like, I mean, I can't really talk about it just because for whatever reason, it seems to demonetize the video and it kills the algorithm. It's one of the two topics, right? But I knew that from the very beginning. I mean, I live in a state in which that weed was never illegal, right? It was a misdemeanor, right? Or it was never a crime. It was illegal, but it was never a crime. It was a misdemeanor, If you got possession of less than an ounce, it was a $600 ticket and you went on your way, right? Nobody lost their livelihood. There was nothing happening to anybody. I mean, if you were growing or selling, then that was a different story, or, maybe driving or whatever. But, just simple possession was never a crime. It was a misdemeanor ticket, right? And so the decriminalization of weed in Oregon has always made it it was always an issue, but it wasn't like an issue like it was other places. Other places, like, you get caught with a joint, you go to jail for life or whatever. And holy crap, like, Oregonians were like, what? Like, that doesn't happen. It was like, yeah, in some states it does. So knowing that it wasn't really that big of a deal to begin with, in that there's really, like, it does take some skill to grow good quality and quantity, but it doesn't take any real special skills or talent to grow it, right? I mean, you can just kind of, just water it and just it'll grow on its own, right? And if you just kind of have some understanding of how to like, dry it, then really there's nothing to it. Like anybody can do it, and so therefore it's not really it doesn't have any real value. If anybody can do it, it doesn't have any value. You have to have something that is unique, something that is limited, something that is, I don't know, like something that has a finite amount to it, or a process that is, not understood or very well done. Like if you can do that, then you have something of value, right? But if you can just throw something in the ground and then it just grows and then it has a product at the end of it and it can be good, like maybe not, but it can be, then it's not like any kind of real value behind it. Like you think about it, like growing something like that as opposed to making beer. Like if you have a beer maker, there's like to understand how to brew beer is a skill. Like the person who brews beer and does good beer that everybody says, man, this guy is a great brewer. He can tell somebody exactly how to brew his beer. Like he can give them like exact instructions right down to the very like finite detail, right? And say, yes, this is exactly how I brew my beer. And no matter what you do, you will never be able to brew the beer like he brews. It'll be different somehow. It might be good, but it won't be like his, because his is unique to him. And that's what's funny about it. And that's the craftsman within it. Now, something like that could exist in the cannabis industry, but it doesn't need to, right? Anybody can do it. And that's why it doesn't have any value to it where beer does. All right. I grow all my own in a greenhouse year round. I can grow this stuff in the winter. All right. Black market business is the backbone of the economy. Yeah. And so that's what it shows the value within it. Like the only time that it ever really had any value is when it was illegal. The moment that you made it legal, that was it. It was all done. All right. Doing bad. Small breweries are closing. Yeah, that's actually a really good sign, Will, because, you think about it, beer is a luxurious item. Like, you don't need it to live. I mean, some people might, some people feel they might. But you don't need it to live, and so therefore it's a luxurious item. And when people are cutting back on luxuries, that's one of the first things that they're going to cut back on is the fancy things that they buy. And small breweries are definitely in the fancy type of luxury experience that people would spend their extra money on. Well, if you don't have extra money, then you don't get that experience. And did I lose a bunch of people talking about it? See, this is what happens. It's the algorithm killer. All right. Sucks that labeled black market and not free market. Yeah, it kind of is. Let's cruise back here a little ways. On that it says deplorable. Sounds like you want a lotto. Oh, a Lodial. Where are my glasses? A Lodial title and 0 county utilities. That's how it's done while all having a strong community. See, and I think like here's the issue when it comes to understanding like anarchy as opposed to what it is that we are headed towards, which would be ultimately it would be a tyranny type, like a tyranny. Is that like how do you compromise on something, right? Like you have one idea and you have another idea and you find something in the middle, right? So if we're headed towards tyranny and you have people who are on the belief of anarchy, and not the violent like they try to make anarchists, like I'm talking getting government out of your life, and that kind of draws something in the middle. Like if we're heading down a direction going towards tyranny, wouldn't you want to like back it up a little bit, and say, hey, we're going to be over here on this side and conduct ourselves in a way that says that intervention that you're trying to go towards is going to be very resisted And in fact, we're going to try and figure out ways to reverse it so that you don't have as much of it and that it's not going down that direction. Are we able to get it all the way to anarchy? Absolutely not, right? That's not going to happen. In fact, the idea of slowing it down is a difficult task of going towards tyranny, right? Like just slowing that process down will be a very difficult task. You know, reversing it will probably be impossible. But the only way that it can happen is if there's a group on the other side saying, hey, we believe in total anarchy in order to compromise something in the middle. Right? Otherwise, it's just going to head right towards tyranny. And I believe that's the case anyway. Right? All right. Millennial Diligence, thank you so much for the $1.99. We about to go back to old reliable war? I don't think so. I mean, I think the old reliable war is kind of over, especially with the drone warfares and stuff like that. Like, it's sad watching a drone chase some dude down, or like, some guy hiding in a damn hole or something like that. And it's just like, this isn't like, that's war. Like that's the way you fight war now, is you fly a little remote control plane into somebody. I mean, that's kind of weird, to me. But that's the way it is nowadays, because that's how technology works. So you can't fight that war. Like, you can't pick up a gun and say, okay, I'm going to go and fight that. So I immediately don't think in that direction. I'm thinking, okay, there's something else that we can do in order to prevent that sort of outcome from taking place. And I know it has to do with the way that we conduct ourselves. See, we can conduct ourselves in a way that says we're going to relinquish them of their power over us. How do you do that personally? How do you do that? Because it's very difficult. Like, I think about it, I want to do it consciously, and I think, well, I have a driver's license, I pay my taxes, I do all these other stuff that forces me into playing with the government. Well, there is ways that I could get out of it. And if I resisted the move into it as much as I can, like limit myself as much as I possibly can to the government intervention, like try to do things to say, I don't go and get permits, I don't get licenses, I don't do any of that stuff in order to conduct myself. Right? The more we do that in our life, we make government irrelevant. The more we get out of dollars, the more we start putting our money towards gold and silver or something outside of the dollar financial system, the banking system, the more we relinquish them of their power, right? Which is very hard, because most people want to be in it. They want to get in return on their investment, right? They want to get the compounding interest that they get out of buying into the bond market or something like that. And I get it. Like, if you don't play in that system, you're going to get left behind. But at the same time, if you play in the system, you're literally heading towards tyranny. The only way to stop that from happening is to behave like an anarchist, which means you got to get all that stuff out of their system and then conduct yourself in a way that says, I'm going to limit the amount of participation I take place in there. See the paradox that we live in? All right. Step 1, appear compliant on the surface. Yeah, I think it's like civil disobedience, right? There's I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I don't think like all that stuff that you're seeing here on that link and everything coming from, I don't that's not me. I'm not into that stuff, right? In fact, I'm fairly passive, when it comes to most of that stuff. I enjoy like boxing and MMA fights and stuff like that, right? I enjoy the sports and the skill and the techniques, and ultimately the reasoning that it was developed in, here on this planet to begin with, right? I mean, I respect the entire thing. But me, myself, I try to carry an energy that says that is not needed in my life, right? I try to carry that energy that says this is not something that is needed anytime, anywhere, and in anything that I do in the way that I conduct myself. Circumstances take place, right? You have yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time, in the wrong situation, out of nowhere something happens, right? Those events do take place. And I'm not saying they don't. They very much do. I would hope to be in an area or in a time or with a group that may have that protection with them, right? I've said that before. I don't live in an area in which that I have ever had an experience in which that would be needed, right? And most of the time when I ever thought of an idea that was needed, I can't like I can't imagine it. Like it was just like even the times in which that there was like a concern, I don't know if that would have necessarily done anything for the situation to get any better, right? In fact, it probably would have made it worse. So that's just like, my feelings when it comes to a lot of this stuff. If I lived in a different area, I would have a much different feeling about it. Yeah. Like civil disobedience. Yeah. Just conduct yourself in a way that makes them irrelevant. Yeah. Don't talk. Don't talk to them. Don't talk. Don't deal with it. Don't sign up. Don't put your name down. Don't do any of that stuff. And people say, oh, but then I can't take advantage of all these opportunities that would be out there that present themselves by the government. And I'd be like, of course, right? I know. Then you get government involved, right? That's how they do it. So it's like, hey, kind of slow out there. Wouldn't you like to have a little bit of money to do something with? Just put your name right there, right? Then it so begins. All right. Well, it's been fun talking my baloney on this, but I have to go to work on Saturday. Talk to you guys later. All right, Deplorable. Thanks for popping in, saying hi for the 51 minutes we've been out here with 145 people watching and 64 thumbs up, listening to me rant on about the propagandized information being perpetrated I guess that's a way of looking at it, out there by the government in order to create the problem reaction solutions that they are needing to control the people. I was robbed at gunpoint for the first of beer in my beer bottle I had unopened between my feet. I reached down and cracked a new one and carried on. Wow. I was robbed by the Mexican police one time in Mexico City. It wasn't at gunpoint, but it kind of felt that way. All right. The answer to your question of balancing anarchy and tyranny is in the economy. You can't really fix it if people think in absolutes. Well, and I totally agree with that too. And that's why I think like so many times people say, well, what is it that I'm supposed to do with the information that you provide here on this channel? And I think to myself, well, that's literally unique to you. Like that is so unique to you in understanding what it is that you have done with your life, with your skills, with your understanding of your environment. Everything is different comparatively to everybody else. There is nothing that I could ever possibly say in a 10-minute video or anything that says this is what you do with the information. Understanding it, internalizing it, and so that you have like a good understanding of Triffin's dilemma, the bullwhip effect, Cantillon effect, and Gresham's law. If you can internalize those four economic theories, like truly understand them, like to the point that you can describe them and tell somebody what they are, then you will just intuitively and naturally be making the right decisions in life. I honestly believe that because every article you read, you will have a reason for it. I was reading an article earlier talking about the struggles of the middle class and how expensive it is to have kids and all this other stuff. And I'm like, Cantillon describes that, but nowhere in the article where you hear anything about the underlying economic force that is playing out. They just talk about how it is that, the government could possibly do something to try and figure it out, or what it is that you can do to save more money, because, that's really what the article is trying to do, is buy into their financial class or whatever it is they got going on. So this is how you do it. Is just like once you figure it out that there is underlying economic forces that are creating the economic environment that we are now living, you just play in those forces, right? You just understand that it's taken place, and then you just, like I said, you just naturally just be making the right decisions because of it. If you are looking for an answer to inequality, and then you don't go down like the Cantillon effect, then what you will do is you will blame politics, you will blame greed, you will blame corporations, you will blame the rich, you will blame all these things. And every single one of those things that you will blame are right. They are 100% right. The only thing is that they are symptoms, right? It's like saying, oh man, I got a headache, right? And it was just like, oh, that's bad. It's like, yeah, it makes it difficult to see. I can't see because of my headache. And I can't, all this other stuff. And it was just like, it's the headache, it's the headache. And it was just like, no, there's something causing the headache. The headache is creating these symptoms, right? But there's something causing that headache. And if you could get rid of the headache, then you would get rid of the symptoms. So we describe all these symptoms and we say that it's the headache that's doing it. But then we don't describe what it is that's creating the headache to begin with. Right? And that's the underlying economic forces. So as everybody describes these symptoms out there and they talk about the pain and they say, oh, well, look at the price of this going up and that. When you talk about how there's no, inflation in lumber, describe why is there inflation in eggs, and it was just like, oh, good Lord, And it was just like, so bullwhip effect would explain a lot of stuff when it comes to understanding why prices move so independently of everything else. When you're looking at one specific thing, you can understand supply and demand, manufacturing increases, decreases based on this, increase in demand and then the lack of inventory that's available out there with the price increases. And this is like something that is been talked about in economic classes for a long time. In fact, there's a game called the beer game talking about distribution, manufacturing, and selling of beer and how it is so difficult to figure out where the balance is between all these things. So understanding that to take place then gives you kind of like a different thought of how prices are moving independently of each other, right? And then also understanding supply demand based on the availability of new money. When that new money comes in, the people who have first access to that money spend it in a particular way. If everybody gets money at the exact same time, kind of like COVID and the stimulus programs, then that money gets deployed into the economy almost like unanimously at the same time in many different directions. But if you have money entering the system in a particular fashion, it's only going into these groups of people who are then spending that money in these particular areas, then what you're going to find is that some prices stay subdued and other prices increase. And this is what we are finding now within our economy, especially after the great financial crisis, as all that money printing, the quantitative easing of 1, 2, 3, and 4, in taking the Fed's balance sheet of 850 billion to over 4.5 trillion, gave the ability of people who had borrowed money to buy assets that then increased the value of those assets, while the wages and cost of living, or not necessarily the cost of living, but the standard of living and the consuming that was taking place amongst the working class individuals really didn't move up. It just stayed somewhat flat. And this is one of the reasons why the Federal Reserve failed to produce the 2% target inflation rate that they were looking for after the great financial crisis. I just babble on, don't I? I just really I just go all over the place with this. All right, nice, beautiful new city court, so we can go to court and pay our tickets and for not wearing a seatbelt or forgetting to use the turn signal. Yeah. People in Wisco don't use turn signals. The seatbelt thing is a 10 by through fee. Huh. Agreed, Rayman. Fascinating book. Oh, what book is that? Beer is easy to brew, but yeah, it can be a high science. Easiest way to fix the economy is to revalue gold. I don't think so, Bob, because once you, if you think about gold in a sense that if you were to just revalue it, then that would mean that we are on some sort of gold standard. To think that gold can then be could back the currency. If you had a gold-backed currency, I am concerned about two major things that would end up taking place. I'm glad at this point in the game that we are not on a gold standard. I really am. I mean, and the Fed, all that other stuff, I'm down for. Let's go for it. Let's go back to a gold standard. I can conduct myself just fine in that. The problem that we end up facing from this is that being on a gold standard would do, I'm afraid of one of two things, or two things really. And it's not a fear, it's just a concern that this would end up happening. When we left the gold standard, gold was in confiscation. And they allowed the ownership of gold again. That was leaving the gold standard. The people then had the right to own gold. So if you think about it, if we were to go back to a gold standard, would that mean the confiscation of gold again? Because when we were on a gold standard, essentially they confiscated the gold, and then it wasn't until Nixon essentially ended the gold standard that the people could have the right to own gold again. So here you have a gold standard. Are they going to confiscate all the gold? Say, hey, you can't own it anymore. We're on a gold standard. You have to turn it all in. It's a very real possibility. I mean, we confiscated it in the past when we were on a gold standard. I don't know why they wouldn't do it in the future if they were to go back. I mean, not that they would, but if they did, why wouldn't they? They would need the gold. So they would be like, hey, all these people are like, oh, we need to be on a gold standard. It'd be like, you're literally like, here, take my gold. Take my gold from me by going back on a gold standard. I mean, anyhow, the other thing is, our standard of living is far too high to produce what it is that we need to maintain this elevated standard of living. If there was a return to a gold standard, we would have to import stuff and export gold. If we imported stuff and exported gold, then we would end up crashing our system in a matter of minutes, especially minutes. Yeah, probably minutes. At least it would feel that way. I can't imagine how fast it would deteriorate our standard of living, knowing that we had to import the stuff that we love and appreciate and desire. I don't know how much appreciation we have for it, but things that we desire from foreign producers out there. If we were to continue to import that stuff, we would export our gold and we would basically be living in poverty and misery within no time at all. Right? And I wouldn't be surprised if it would really feel like minutes to a lot of people. So those are like my major concerns when it comes to a gold standard. I just don't believe that we should do that in that fashion. Now, you as an individual, I think should load up on gold. Us as Americans, as individual people here in the United States, I believe that all of us should be loading up on precious metals. We should have a stack of it, every single one of us. Independent of everything else out there, it gives us an insurance policy away from that third-party claim. No matter what they do out there, we have some sort of value to ourselves that we can hopefully carry to the other side. Because remember, if you're going to use it for survival purposes, you're probably going to end up losing it pretty quickly. But if you plan on keeping all of it to the other side, now you got something that you can use. Right? So really, let's do it, man. Let's go ahead and crash the system. Let's see what happens for it. I mean, I've kind of thought about what it is that I would strategize to do. I don't know how many other people have thought that way. I think most people would probably end up suffering the consequences of being in that sort of environment. And I don't know what it is that the government could ever possibly do in that sort of like era that would be helpful or useful. Like, to me, I'm like, I don't know, even more I would want them out of my life, Thanks for your point of view. It expands mine. Yeah, you bet, David. Well, I've thought about a lot of stuff over the years. I mean, I've thought about, what is this? 2005. It's been almost 8 years I've been doing YouTube. 8 years talking almost every single day economics and current economic conditions, what it is that is going on from a working class point of view, trying to keep myself as grounded as possible while at the same time trying to elevate everything that it is that I got going on. It is probably one of the most unique channels when it comes to understanding economics that you can find out there, because somebody who is discussing economics at this level, and I'm not trying to say that I'm some sort of super genius or anything like that. I've just talked about a lot of stuff over these years, and to try and dive into monetary policy, to incorporate it into the working class point of view, to know that we have a two-tiered system, to explain that, how it's happening, what it is that we can do about it over these years. I don't know if there's anybody else on YouTube who's done it in this fashion. It's, I don't know. It's like what I was put here to do. If we really want a gold standard, much money people would be mining it like crazy. Horrible. I think. I think gold at $4,000, just shy of 4,000, whatever, at $4,000 is. I mean, I think it has a long ways to go, but that's really good, right? That's a lot of money for an ounce of gold. I mean, I remember an ounce of gold selling for $300 when I graduated high school. It was probably a little bit more than that. It was right before I graduated high school. It was around $300 an ounce for an ounce of gold. To think about it being at $4,000 now, I mean, that's incredible, right? And that's huge. That's because it's global demand. It's like something that is going to forever be the only other asset outside of dollars. Like, if you don't trust dollars, you don't have confidence in dollars, gold is literally the only other option you've got, right? Because then if you don't trust dollars, you're going to have to trust some other lesser country out there. Gold is it, and Bitcoin to a lesser extent. But then even on top of that, if you were to compare Bitcoin to gold, I mean, think about it in this condition. Just this, give yourself this one view of it, and it'll dominate one. It'll show you the domination of one over the other, right? Because if you did something like remove all the gold from the world, you just took it out, just all of a sudden all the gold vanished, Bitcoin would vanish too, because gold is so vital of a commodity. It is used in all our communications, technologies, silver as well, especially silver, right? In everything that we do, this is a vital commodity. This precious metals has to be here in order for us to conduct ourselves the way we do. Now, you remove Bitcoin, just all of a sudden just take Bitcoin out. A bunch of people will get pain and suffering from it. Like, a lot of people would feel it. Like me, I know I'm one of them. I have, almost half a Bitcoin, right? If you removed Bitcoin, it would like be painful for a handful of people, but nothing would change. Nothing would change. Absolutely nothing, right? Everything would continue on the way it is. There would be some disruption to the people who have conditioned their economic outcomes to be involved with cryptocurrencies and all that other stuff, but ultimately nothing would really change, right? But if you remove gold, everything would change. So which one's greater? The one that literally would change the way that we are and the way that we conduct ourselves, or the one that would have disruption? And then everything would go back to, it would continue on. And that's why gold is better. Gold, there's nothing that beats gold. Gold is it. That's it. It's at the top. There's nothing else. There never will be. Like I don't think there is anything that could ever possibly be any better of a commodity than gold to be outside of a third-party claim, to be owning something of value that doesn't have any kind of third-party involvement in any shape or form, right? And there's nothing else that does it. What about diamonds and Rolexes? Okay, so diamonds, no, because now they're just artificially made and they're just as good as the ones that they dig out of the ground. So diamonds are not really that valuable anymore, especially since they can just be man-made. And I mean, don't get me wrong, they have value to them, because it is still an item that can be, used. But ultimately, if you can just produce lab-grown diamonds that are almost or just essentially as good as the ones they dig out of the ground, then diamonds really aren't that unique or rare, And Rolexes, they're only good for the luxurious purchases that people want to make out there to say, hey, look, I got something fancy. It doesn't really provide anything else for you. So yeah, you can hide it inside of like a little bit of wealth inside of a Rolex, but then really what are you doing? You are anticipating that that Rolex will then what? Get you dollars. So you're not really exiting out of dollars. You're exiting out of dollars for a minute, right? Because eventually you're going to need to get back in dollars again, because what else are you going to do with the Rolex? I mean, you're hungry, right? It's time to sell it, or it's time to trade it. Can you break off a little piece of your Rolex and say, hey man, can I get something to eat today? Right? Gunner, thank you so much for the $4.99. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate the super chats and keeping me going out here. We got 163 people watching with 79 likes. We're talking anarchy and disruption of government and how government intervention is going to destroy our lives. No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, the propagandized information that I saw out there, I just had to share it with you guys, and I thought it was pretty good. So anyway, I came out here and rant about it. All right. Or you're anticipating to sell the Rolex to someone who also values it. But again, you're still stuck in dollars, no matter what you do. You know, if you buy an item with the idea that you're going to have this particular item for the future, how is it that you are going to deal with that thing in the future? Are you going to trade the entire item for something? Because that's what you're going to have to do, because it's a Rolex. You can't break a piece of it off of it, or you can't, like if it's at least silver bullion, you know, I mean, you'll have a bunch of them and you can just at least, you know, give away one silver bullion as opposed to an entire watch, you know. 24 karat gold guns is the ultimate flex to the government. Remember, gold is Simon's choice. Investing is incredibly personal, and you may want to need another barrier asset. Yeah. Yeah. And when I talk about gold, I mean silver essentially the same. Right? I mean, gold, like, to me, silver is actually better than gold just because it's super undervalued. But gold is the world asset. Like, that's the one that the world focuses in on. Silver is definitely, in my opinion, an underappreciated, unloved, vital commodity that is incredibly undervalued to gold. So really, I mean, silver would probably be the better position to go to. But when it comes to like the world stage, it's gold. Wow, 3 channels I mod for are all live right now. everybody's awake on Saturday, man. Whole Nighter's got a lot of work to do. All right, people that have never worked a day in their life that has been making big money, they will lash out in violence when their cushy jobs are removed by AI. I don't know. I mean, I think that's an assumption. I think that's really just depending on how people do. I'm not scared of AI. I'm not scared of AI. I'm not scared of the future technologies. I'm not scared of any of that stuff that's coming. And like, even I personally am watching my job get phased away through portals. Like, I mean, you guys know, I do sales, do building materials sales for a living. I order doors, I order windows, I order hardware, I order lumber, I order stuff, right? I order stuff to build a house for people's remodel projects or whatever. I order windows through a portal, I order doors through a portal, I order hardware through a portal, I order metal like roofing and siding through a portal, I order everything, like everything's starting to get ordered through portals. Right? There's some stuff I still make a phone call or I can send an email to order. But for the most part, there's a computer program that I take my mouse and I go click, click, click. That's my job. Click, type in a number, click. And this is my job. Put the window order in, make sure all the windows are right, do the window order. What I am doing, essentially the customer could do. right? I mean, I don't know what, I mean, outside of just giving them options, because I know like the differences between windows and saying, okay, hey, I can discuss what your options are here. What I do with the mouse and the portal is literally a monkey can do it. There's nothing there for any like skill, right? It's just filling in the blanks. And so as time goes on, eventually I will be phased out. I won't be needed anymore, because the customer can be like, hey, here's my window order. AI will look at the window order, fill in the blanks, and then it'll be over. Right? In fact, it's probably already there. It's just, just hasn't been refined enough to actually exclude me out of the game yet. So I can see it happening. I'm not scared. Like, I'm not scared of that. When it happens, I'll move on. Like, I don't know what it is I'll do, but I'll just figure it out. And there's, like, to me, I'm not worried about trying to figure out what it is that I'm going to do. I've always done something, so I'll figure out something else to do, because there's always something to do, right? And that will be the next right decision I have to make, is the one that says, hey, man, go figure out what to do next. So I'm not worried about it. But I can see it happening just the same as everybody else. And I just got a regular retail job. Like, I'm not even like, got some fancy tech job or whatever. I'm just a retail dude, So yeah, even my job is getting phased out by AI as well. What are you going to do? Right? What are you going to do about it? You got to figure it out. You got to figure out what the next step is, the next right thing. All right. Would it be fun to be a lumber broker? I don't know. Like, people ask me all the time, is like, how come you don't go get an economics degree or something like that and then go work for some major corporation doing economic analytics or something like that? And I'm like, God Lord, it sounds terrible. I mean, it sounds like a horrible existence. Why would I want that? I mean, God, that's the last thing I want to do. To sit in some office trying to break down numbers and explain what the hell is going on to a bunch of, like, no, man, that doesn't sound fun to me. What sounds fun to me is living my life like I do with my family, and then understanding how these economic forces are playing out and sharing that with an audience. That sounds wonderful to me. Letting the audience absorb the information in the way that they need to, in order to conduct themselves, to either push back or use the information in order to confirm or, solidify some beliefs or change their beliefs or whatever it is that's going on out there. That's what I'm doing. Like, that's what I want to do with this information. I don't need a degree for that. Like, in fact, it's better that I don't have a degree, because I believe not having a degree gives me more credibility. I believe that not working for a CEO and not having, or for some corporation, not having anything to sell, I think that gives the channel more credibility, right? Like, I don't, like, what is it that you guys got to buy from me? You want to buy a t-shirt? You want to buy a hat? I got t-shirts and hats for sale, but I really don't have anything else, And it would be fun to sell something. Like, I have the membership. You guys can buy the membership. That's fun. But there's nothing out there that I really have to offer you that's going to make me rich, right? The YouTube channel does really well. It's like working a second job. So I work it like it's a second job. I do a lot of research. I do a lot of reading and understanding and thinking of what the next video is going to be. Come out here and try and flow it out as easy as possible so that people can understand it. Not say and. It's work. It's work, but it's fun. And I don't think about it like work. So, what is it that people are going to do with their lives, and how is it that they figure it out? That's, to each their own, right? That's what we're here for, is to try and figure out economic forces so that you can better understand what you need to do. But no, I don't know if it would be fun to be a lumber broker. I don't think so. I think it would be boring. Like, lumber sales is kind of boring. Selling 2x4s and then loading them up in a truck. I mean, there's nothing really exciting about it. It's just kind of fun to, like, work with the customer who's maybe designing a deck or picking out decking, choices or something like that, or going through different window options, and saying, well, here's our, that's kind of fun, to just discuss the project. But that's not that's only occasionally does something like that happen. For the most part, people kind of already know what they want when they come in, and they're just like processing the sales. If you lived right, that job can be a great launch pad. Don't realize that until I got mine. But yeah, and I can agree. I can agree with that. Standard nursery. Still waiting for my knowledge of the chlorophyll that come in handy in job interview. Huh. I'm in a civil design via computer drafting. AI offers some neat things, but it's going to be a long while before it can do a whole design of a project. Any sweatpants with dice to match my shirt and hoodie? I don't know. My friend Chandler had set up the Teespring account where all that UE merchandise is, and um, she had a career change path. She's doing really well. She's, I really miss her, but she did a lot for this channel, and yeah, and setting all that up was one of them. I should go back in there and kind of, take a look at all that Teespring stuff and update it. All right, how was the camp? Caught any fish? Are you talking about Freddie going camping? No, I don't think they caught any fish. We did go fishing at the lake, and he caught some bluegill out there. He was really excited about that. You know what's opened up? And it's really cool, and I probably shouldn't even talk about it here, but everybody knows about it anyway. But the South Jetty out at Fort Stevens is now opened up, and it's really dangerous. It's this jetty that goes out like miles. It goes way out into the it's the ocean on one side and the mouth of the river on the other. So it's just like it's a big jetty that goes out there. But you can fish off of it. And from what I understand, the fishing off of the jetty can be quite good at times. So maybe that'll be something Freddie and I can do here in the future, is go out there and I'll video some of that stuff. But I'm excited about that. I was talking to some of the guys, because you haven't been able to go out there for the last like 5 or 6 years. They've been rebuilding it, so they've had it closed off and nobody was allowed to go out on the jetty at all. But now all the fences and barriers are down. And it's tough work. I mean, it's big boulders, and you have to jump from boulder to boulder, and there's big waves that come in, and so it's like you have to really pay attention to what you're doing out there. Quality is 100. How long do you guys want to go for? Are we done? Do we want to keep talking? You want me to break something down for you? You want me to talk about anything in particular? Do you work from home? I don't. I mean, my lumber business, I work at a store. Let's cruise back here a little ways. If we really want a gold standard would be worth so much money, people would be mining it like crazy. That's right, we talked about that. Yeah. I mean, I think people are going to start mining it like crazy anyway, just because you think about it, at $4,000 an ounce. I mean, there's places in Oregon where you can, where you can find like an ounce of gold a day. Yeah, there's places where once you get this technique down, and like just an individual person can go out and, set up sluicing and methods and stuff like that and really recover a lot of gold. And I mean, you don't have to recover that much gold to make it. I mean, even $1,000 a day would just be awesome, a quarter ounce of gold. So there's, like, to me, that's going to start sending a pretty nice little gold rush anyway, just with the amount of gold that it's, with the price that a gold is selling for now. I watched a documentary on how they picked each rock out and numbered them. Yeah, Big Hill, that is actually incredible, because they drove them right past the store that I work at, right? So I could see all the semis going past with those stones. And they were huge. Like they were as big as a car, right? Or, even bigger at times. I mean, they would go 1 stone at a time on these big flatbed trucks, flatbed semis, trailers hauling them out there. They were shaped at the quarry to fit at the jetty, like a particular spot. Like they would request a rock to look and be shaped in a particular fashion. They'd be numbered, and then when they would show up at the jetty, a big excavator, which from what I understand had never existed until they decided to make that, until they did that project. Now there's 5 of these excavators in the world, but at the time I guess there was only one of them. And it literally places that rock that they had from some quarry. I don't know where the hell the quarry comes from, but they would place that rock in that spot in the jetty. Each rock shaped and made to fit. And there's like thousands and thousands, and I don't even know, a million rocks out there. I don't think the lumber retail is high on the priority of AI optimization. In my opinion, humans are suited for this. I'm not saying that it's high on the AI optimization. What I am saying is that the condition in which that the sales are taking place is becoming less and less needed for a sales middleman. Like the sale can take place with, it's almost like the self-checkout at the grocery store, right? That's not AI doing that. That's just technology taking over, right? That's what I'm kind of getting at, is that technology is showing up in a way that is going to remove me from my position at some point. Now, whether AI is involved, where it can read a guy's list of window orders and then transfer that list over into, into the information in the portal and then make the order, I mean, I can't imagine that being like happening right away. But at some point, AI will just develop itself to do that, wouldn't it? Retail is heavy in AI already if you count Amazon. It makes you admire the pyramids and stuff. It sure does. Okay, I would like to take a slower but pleasant human interaction over AI and speed. Anyway, guys, my phone is getting to the end, and we're an hour and 27 minutes into this. I want to thank everybody who has joined in on today's live stream. Let's come back, say tomorrow, and we will break down Federal Reserve speeches, especially Bowman's speech. I think that one's going to be a good one. Myron's speech, and Powell also had a speech. I don't know if we're going to get all 3 of them knocked out tomorrow, but let's see if we can maybe at least get 1 or 2 of those things done. And I'm thinking that Bowman's speech would be the good one to read and to internalize. Those who have not become a member of the channel, you should consider becoming a member of the channel. It's $1 a month. We break down these Federal Reserve speeches so that the average everyday person can have a conversation about it. They are very deep, very complex. Sometimes, like, even they can get over my head, especially like Williams' All the Stars speech. That thing was very in-depth. But we try to break them down in a way that you can internalize and understand. Remember, these are communications going to the other central bankers, and they are not necessarily understood by the mainstream media or even explained by the mainstream media or any of the economists who are out there, explained in a way that is what I feel is an appropriate understanding for the working class individual. That's what I believe this channel does, right? Is it takes that information and says this is useful to us in a particular way that is not necessarily the same way that you are getting from mainstream media or the economists that are out there. Ultimately, internalizing the information for yourself, right? 2 things to fix this mess: get money out of politics and make the internet a public utility. I'm taking a break from gifting more memberships. Well, I don't blame you, Will. I really appreciate all the memberships you have ever gifted to the Uneducated Economist viewers out there who have gotten to take advantage of that gifting membership. I know that other people who had been gifted a membership had turned around and gifted memberships out there, and I thought that that was really cool and very unique for this channel as well. I don't know how many other channels do that for each other, but that was very cool of the viewers of this channel to gift memberships to other people. Alrighty. You guys are awesome. Thank you much for being here. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.